I mentioned that I was having some issues with my port, that it was having blood return, and then it wasn't flushing, and then it wasn't doing anything. And my nurse and I, I did it like 3 times, then she did it, then we knew it was accessed correctly. And this is the thing that's tricky. One of the things that's tricky when you're involved in so much medical things like I am, and people in the medical field don't realize that you know a lot more than their typical patient because of all the things I've gone through and all the things that I deal with on a regular basis, and that I just know a lot about different diseases and stuff like that. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right now. When I went to get my port checked, I thought it was going to be a CAT scan with dye, so they confused me right from the beginning because they said it was fluoroscopy and the IR, so that's interventional radiology, which is the same place I got my port placed. But it was with like the same kind of contrast, but they were just injecting it. They're gonna inject it into the port, and it's a very little dose. And I was talking to the nurse before I went in to do this and explaining, and they have to access the port for you. I thought I could go in with it, but no. She accesses it, and then she pushes for to flush it with the saline, and it goes completely fine. And I literally was like jumped, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No," I was like, "No, I'm fine. I can't believe that worked." And then she draws back blood, and it works completely. And I'm in shock because 10 times it wouldn't work. She's like, "Oh, well, that nurse might have been having a bad day, and she was probably off a little." I'm like, and I just wanted to, try it again. It was that balance of you don't know, you don't get it. I've been accessing this port since I was 17. I'm 25 now. I've had it. I've missed before. I know what that feels like. I know when you put saline in it and it's in the right place, it burns like crazy. I know when it's crooked. I've had nurses that have put it in badly and have had a bad day. This nurse, and she does it all the time. It's an infusion nurse. And I'm like, I do it all the time. I know when I'm in. And I kept explaining it was the weirdest thing. And she's like, "Well, you must have," she was saying "Oh, well, if I access that X dot," I'm not really showing a dot right now, but it's really hard because I can't zoom in right now. But if you were to see that, you could see a little dot where it has been accessed, and then there could be a dot next to it. That's just a birthmark, so don't think of that as anything. But that doesn't have anything to do with if it's in the same spot, because you pull your skin like this to access a port. So look, this bruise here could be in the middle of my port now. I'm making it in the middle, or I could have it all the way over here or all the way over here, depending on which way I pull my skin. So I was telling her that. I'm like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with it, because it depends on, you have to tighten the skin. The spots where you stick aren't going to be in the exact same spot. That makes no sense. And then I said, well, I was having blood return, so that means that I'm in the port. And she was like, well, I could have blood return anywhere. I'm like, well, you're not gonna have blood return. And I'm trying not to be like, sound like I'm above you. Like, I know I didn't go to nursing school. I know I don't know everything that you do. I know that you've done all this, but like, I know my port and I know how my port works. And to get blood return, you need to be like in a blood vessel. And she's like, oh, I could like stick you anywhere with like that needle and get blood return. And I just like didn't even say anything to that, because I'm like, well, what's the point of checking for blood return to make sure you're in the right spot in the middle of the port then and hitting the backing? But I didn't even go there. I just left it. But it was like, she was, oh, well, everyone misses, and it, like as if she saved the day and I couldn't do it. Oh, and the nurses weren't good. I was like, oh, no, honey. No, we know all this stuff. We did that. It wasn't positional. It wasn't, I was laying weird. It wasn't, that she didn't know what she was doing, or she was new, or I haven't done this before, like, So she basically didn't want to do the fluoroscopy, which would be injecting the dye into my port, and then you can see it almost on like an x-ray looking thing, but it's not an actual x-ray. You can see it live. I could have my head up like this while I was lying down on the table and could see my whole chest and like my bones and the port in my chest, and how the end of the catheter going here and then to my heart was flowing perfectly in the place it should be. So there are no issues with my port, apparently, besides the fact that it would not flush at all, or then the blood return. No one understands that. The only thing that the doctor could come up with, besides having a bad day with the port, and nurses aren't all good like that, and I'm like, yeah, I know, trust me, was that the cath flow that we did to put into the port, once we could get it to flush a little bit, it's to get rid of if there's a fibrin sheath, or gosh, yeah, I was thinking myelin sheath a second. No, if there's a fibrin like piece of clot, and they said when you push the stuff in, and then you wait so it like dissolves the clot, and then you have to pull it back out because you don't want it sitting in your body in that area forever. And when you pull it back out, which is the blood return, that some of it can kind of get sucked back in, and basically all they could think of was that we don't know what we're doing with accessing ports, or the cath flow just needed more time, because it was weird, because the couple days after, it still wouldn't work after the cath flow, but then a few days later after that, it suddenly worked when I was having a test done. But at least I know that my port, 9 years going strong, is still in the same spot. There's no need for getting it replaced at this point, no need at all. And I had IVIG on Monday, accessed it correctly, no problem at all, and it was fine. So kind of a mystery, but it was funny talking to that nurse and explaining my medical history, and me having to go through and explain I'm saying CIDP, and she's like you tell in her face, and I'm like, do you know what that is? Because again, I didn't want to like be like, I'm looking down on her, you know? And I said, oh, it's chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. And she's like, and I'm like, so that means, she didn't know what any of it, and then I go to the next thing, she didn't know what that means. She's like, you're killing me with acronyms and big words today. So hey, I taught the nurse something, and yes, I do know how to access support to her, so she was nice. That was just like, I was like, no, I know it's not us. I know it's not our problem. Like, seriously, trust me. We did all the troubleshooting. It was not us. It's not our fault. And she made me look like a total liar because then she accessed it fine. But that's great news with my port. And hopefully we won't have to do any catho or anything anytime soon. That's just my update on that. And